I'm here in Austin, Texas with Cassandra Calendar. Thank you for joining us here in Austin.
Thank you for having me.
You had a good flight last night?
I did. I'm tired.
Yeah, are you?
Yeah.
Okay. But you slept well?
I did.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Cassandra. You're how old?
I'm 17, turning 18 this fall.
All right, almost 18.
Yeah.
Good deal. So what do you like doing? What do you like to do?
I like being outside, going shopping, movies, hanging out with my friends, hanging with my cat.
With your cat? What's the
Yeah.
cat's name?
Simba.
Simba.
Yeah.
Lion King.
Yes.
All right, cool. So tell us about your overall health that led you to go to the doctor and eventually be diagnosed with, was it Hodgkin lymphoma?
Yes.
Okay, talk about those days before you knew that you were diagnosed with cancer. What was going on with you?
Well, it started with having severe stomach pain, like cramps, abdominal pain. So I had to go to the emergency room because it was so bad. And
When was this? What year was this?
this was May of 2014.
Okay.
And when we went to the hospital, they couldn't find anything wrong. They just sent me home, and I had to do a follow-up with my doctor, and there was a lump on my neck about the size of a golf ball, and they weren't sure what it was. They put me on antibiotics for months, and they couldn't figure out what was going on because the lump wasn't going down. So they wanted to start testing it and do biopsies, and we were getting nowhere. They were poking me with needles and biopsies every week, and they just said it was suspicious. So we did initial surgery to remove the lymph node, and that's when they started questioning cancer. And that was in September of 2014.
September 2014.
Yeah.
So at that point, they thought it might be cancer?
Yeah, like they were questioning it. When we talked to the oncologist, they said it looks like Hodgkin's lymphoma. And from there, that's when they immediately said we had to start chemotherapy. But my mom and I wanted a second opinion because looking like cancer isn't an actual answer for us.
Right. So they thought it looked like Hodgkin lymphoma, but they didn't do a biopsy. They didn't know for sure.
Yeah, like they did the biopsy, but
They did a
they
biopsy.
refused to do a second one.
And so at that point, I know that's when we started reading about this in the papers.
Yeah.
The Cassandra in Connecticut is...
We went up to Bay State, Mass. to a different doctor to get another biopsy. They refused to do it. They had talked to Hartford Hospital, where I originally was, and they said there was no need to do another biopsy. There was no need for any other surgical procedures. They just wanted to immediately start the chemo. And my mom and I were researching chemo, and I didn't want it. I wanted to look for an alternative. And considering they wouldn't test me again, I wasn't sure of anything.
Right. So basically, you didn't want to do chemo, and you wanted a second opinion.
Yeah.
And what were the reasons that you wanted to stay away from chemo that you had researched?
Just the side effects, the long-term side effects that people potentially have, organ failure and problems with your health and digestive system and everything that goes with chemo. I mean, I did it for 5 months and it was horrible.
Okay, so you did do chemo.
Yeah, not willingly.
It wasn't your choice.
No.
The long-term side effects of chemo concerned you, right?
Yeah.
Being only 17.
Yeah, and I mean, I was reading into it, and they were saying possible organ failures and difficulty doing physical activity the rest of your life, and I didn't want that, especially when I knew that there was homeopathic and natural ways of treating cancer. They told me chemo was my only option.
They told you chemo was your only option. Okay. So at that point, you wanted to get a second opinion.
Yeah.
At some point, did the Child Protective Services get involved? What happened?
Yes, after we left Bay State with nothing because they refused to do another biopsy, the Department of Children and Families was called because we were wasting time, according to the doctors. They wanted me in for chemotherapy a week after my biopsy was done at Hartford. And they came in and they took me because they said that I had to get the chemo. And
What do you mean they said when you say they took you?
they came into my house in October around Halloween, and they said that I had to go with them,
And who is they?
the DCF workers.
Okay, the Family Division of Family and
Yeah.
Child Services or
Yeah,
whatever.
DCF.
DCF. Okay, so they actually came into your home and took you from your.
Yeah, they had about 12 police squad cars surrounding my house and the block, and they basically just came into my house and said, we have to go. My mom wasn't even home. I was hiding in my closet upstairs because I had no idea what was going on. And
Were you the only one at the house?
yeah, I called my mom crying, and she came home immediately to police and DCF workers surrounding our house.
That's unbelievable.
And they said I had no choice but to go with them.
What were you feeling at that point with
I was scared.
with your house surrounded?
Like, I had no idea what was going on, and I was scared, and I didn't understand why, because at the time I didn't know that I didn't have a choice. Like, I didn't know that you couldn't refuse to do chemotherapy. So
You didn't realize that they were going to force you.
yeah, I didn't know, because no one said anything. The doctors just said that it was in a timely manner and we had to do it, and I was telling them no.
I assume then that you live outside of Hartford, Connecticut. I assume that there's never any crimes in Hartford because they took 12 police cars away from things that they should be doing, right?
Yeah.
Keeping us safe to go surround your house.
Yes, it was unnecessary to have that many people around my house. It wasn't necessary to have police there at all, but they did.
So at that point, they told your mom that we're taking Cassandra.
Yes.
You don't have any options. And then at that point, did they tell you we're going to start you on chemotherapy?
No, it was a longer process. They brought me to the hospital to get me evaluated, and they placed me in a foster home in the meantime because we had to go to court because they really didn't know what they could or couldn't do with me because this has never happened before.
Right.
So I went from a foster home in and out of the hospital, and eventually I ran away because I couldn't do it. I didn't want anything to do with this. They were ruining my life, basically. They came in and they took me away because I didn't want chemo when there's other options out there, and I just didn't understand why they were doing it.
You mentioned that you ran away.
Yeah.
What happened?
They let me come home from the foster home through a judge ordering to still stay in custody, but I could be at my house, ordering that I had to do the chemo, though. And I did 2 days of it. And that was because I was court-ordered to do it, and I was freaking out. And basically, I did 2 days of it, and it was horrible. I felt sick. I didn't feel myself, and I didn't want it. I was being forced to do something that I wanted nothing to do with. So I ran away for about a week. And when I started getting phone calls from people saying they were going to place my mom in jail and people thought I was dead, I came home. And from there is when court dates started coming up, and they were talking of what they were going to do with me, and I was admitted to the hospital in December.
Okay, and so in December when you were admitted, what happened? More chemotherapy?
Yeah, I was admitted December 9th directly from the courtroom. The judge ordered that I had to be hospitalized until further notice. It was never given exactly how long. It was just I had to be hospitalized. So
okay, why did the judge order that you had to be hospitalized immediately?
DCF ordered that. They stood before the judge and said it would be in my best interest to be hospitalized.
DCF?
Yes.
Are they medical doctors?
No.
But they ordered you to be hospitalized?
Yes.
And they're not doctors?
No.
Okay, that's bizarre.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's just weird that they have the authority to force you to go to the hospital and they don't have anything to do with medicine. Huh.
They had my doctor, my primary oncologist, talk to the judge, and basically all the doctors were telling the judge that I was going to die. They said that they don't know when I'm going to die, but I'm going to die if I do not start the treatment immediately.
And this is on a diagnosis of cancer that they weren't even sure about.
To them, they were sure of it, but the refusing to do a second biopsy was what made me unsure of it.
Right.
Why they refused to do it and why they were so anxious to start the chemotherapy immediately.
So then you began more chemo in December.
Yes. After about 2 weeks of being in the hospital, going through courts and judges, they got the order that they could force me to do the chemotherapy. And at that point, I was in the hospital. I couldn't leave my room. There was a guard sitting outside of my door. I couldn't use my phone. I couldn't contact my mom. And basically it came down to one morning they came in and they strapped me to the bed and they sedated me for surgery.
Really?
Yes. Because you have to have a port to have chemotherapy, which is why I have a scar.
And you didn't want a port?
No, because I didn't want the chemo. And
Right.
the idea of having an object inside of me grossed me out. And so they came in to insert an IV and I said no. So they had to have the officers and the security guards and the staff come in. And they brought in a bed that had straps, and they had to tie me down by my wrists and my ankles. And a woman came in, and they put a needle in my neck to knock me out. And the next thing I knew, I woke up, and I was in the recovery room.
Wow.
It was horrible.
That is horrible. They literally strapped you to a bed and did a procedure against your
It
wishes?
took 12 people. 4 of them lifted me up by my arms and my legs and had to hold me down. I wasn't going down without a fight at that point.
Wow. Well, good for you. But I'm at a loss for words that they literally did that to you. Wow.
At that point, I didn't feel like a human anymore. I didn't feel like I was being treated like one.
Right.
And I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I just did not want the chemotherapy, and they were telling me I had no other option.
Well, you weren't being treated like a human. Humans don't strap other humans down and do something against their wishes to them.
And I told all of them. I told the doctors, I told the surgeon, I told everyone that I don't want this. I'm not giving consent to this. I yelled it probably a dozen times, and they said nothing.
Wow.
And the DCF workers just stood in the room and watched.
How did that make you feel at that point?
I was frustrated and annoyed and confused and mad and scared. It was a mix of everything because it's never happened before, and as a human, I think I have rights to choose what medicine I want to do, whether it's natural or chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Because there's people out there that do it, and I want it to be one of them.
Right. And you had nobody there with you?
No. They wouldn't allow my mom to be there that day, and they would not tell me why. She was supposed to come in that morning, and last minute they said she wasn't allowed to be there.
So they did this to you by yourself?
Yes.
17 years old?
Yes.
So what happened after this forced medical procedure where they put a port in you?
I woke up in the recovery room. They gave me heavy sedation so I couldn't freak out when I woke up. And basically they said, this is what's going to happen every day that you receive chemo if you don't comply. And at that point, it was traumatizing. I didn't want to be strapped to a bed every day in the hospital for 5 months, so I just did it. There was nothing else I could do.
So they threatened you, said, if you don't comply, we will strap you down every day.
Yes, in the days that I had chemo, they wouldn't allow me to eat because the sedation medicine makes you sick and you could throw up and choke. So chemo lasted about 6 days a week, once a month, and then another 8 days after that. It goes on a cycle. So any day I had chemo, they wouldn't let me eat for 12 hours before in case they had to sedate me.
Wow.
So when it comes to that, you start complying with it because you don't want to starve, and
Right.
It was horrible being strapped down.
So they not only forced chemo against your wishes, they on the days that you did chemo, they basically starved you.
Yes, until I started complying with it, and that stopped.
Okay, so wait, let me get this right. So once you began to comply, then they fed you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it had nothing to do with the chemo wouldn't mix with food. They starved you to make you comply.
Yes, because if I didn't comply with it, they'd have to sedate me, and you can't eat when you take sedative medicine.
I see.
Like when you go under surgery, you're not supposed to eat for 12 hours.
Okay. So they said if you don't do it willingly, we're going to sedate you and starve you.
Yes.
Wow, I mean, I'm laughing, but it's an absurd laugh.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm having a hard time believing that this actually happened. When were you allowed to talk to your mother, and did she figure out that this had actually happened to you?
I was not allowed to talk to her on the phone by myself. Phone calls had to be supervised. Everything had to be supervised. If she were to come see me in the beginning, DCF workers had to be in the room with her, and it was limited to 2-hour visits. And eventually, they didn't allow her to come at all anymore.
Why?
After court, certain things happened, and they were afraid that she would be a bad influence on me because she was fighting for me. She's my mom, and she was taking my side, and if I didn't want the chemo, she was going to stand up for that, and DCF looked at that as a bad influence. They didn't want us together, and it came down to that's what they thought my best interest was.
Best interest was to be away from your mother because she was on your side.
Yes.
She might influence you to continue fighting them.
And my mother had a very strong opinion about this, and she still does, and she's very outspoken, and DCF didn't like that. So it came down to where they thought it would be better that she wasn't always around with me.
How did that make you feel that you couldn't talk to your mother for so many months?
It bothered me because my mom is the only person I've ever had, along with DCF, didn't allow anyone else to come see me except for a very small list of people that were approved. So it was basically sitting in a hospital alone for 5 months. And they would make comments in court saying how I wasn't alone because my DCF workers would come and see me and visit me and bring me food. But at the end of the day, that's your DCF worker, not your friends, your family, your mom, your pets, anything like that. It's just a DCF worker.
They made comments like that in court, that you weren't alone because you had the DCF?
Yes, because I would tell the judge that I was in there alone, and they would stand up and say I wasn't alone because they would come and see me every week.
Well, I mean, people that are in jail for life aren't alone either. They have the guards bring them food and put it through the door. I mean, that sounds kind of like what happened to you.
DCF was nice to me. They'd bring me anything I wanted, but that doesn't make up for locking me in a hospital and forcing me to do the chemo.
Right. So when you stopped chemo, I guess in April of 2015?
Yeah, April 27th was the last dose of the chemo.
Okay. You remember the date?
Yeah, that was the day I was released.
Okay. So they let you out of the prison at April 27th?
Yes.
Okay. And you were able to go home?
Yes.
What did that feel like at that point?
It was unbelievable because after 5 months you adapt to living in a room and stepping outside. Like, I could just smell everything. Like, you could smell people down the street that were smoking. You could smell food in people's cars. Like, it was just being in the world again.
Good feeling for you?
It was a good feeling. I didn't even know what to do with myself.
What was it like for you and your mother when you got reunited finally? She wasn't able to visit you in the hospital.
She was able to visit towards the end.
Oh, she was?
Because I was done, per se. So, but actually being back home with her and my family and my friends and of course my cat was a great feeling because you shouldn't have to be taken away from that for so long. I didn't do anything wrong. I just simply didn't want a certain medication. I wanted something else.
But you were treated like a criminal.
Yes.
I mean, they don't put armed guards at many people's hospital doors.
A lot of things that I tell people is some people in prison at least get to go outside for an hour a day, and I didn't get that.
So now that you're out of the hospital, you're back home, free to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Have you had any further testing on the Hodgkin lymphoma?
Yes, and that's what the problem is. My last PET scan that I received in July, I believe, didn't look good. Okay. It came back that things were questionable and there's still activity and there's still remaining tissue. So my doctor said that there could be a slight concern, but they'll worry about that in August.
So yeah, that's bothersome that they forced this treatment on you that was supposed to cure the cancer, and now there's still questionable.
There's still a questionable remainder of something in my abdomen. The PET scan didn't come up clear. So.
But they're not sure?
They're not sure, but
whatever happened to the lump, is it gone?
It's gone. Most of the lumps and things that they claim that grew in my lymph nodes inside of me are gone, but it's the abdomen where they say there's something that's still lighting up. It's concerning, and they're not sure what it is, but it's not a clear scan. So to force me to go through the chemotherapy to save my life and then say, well, we're not sure if they actually did or not. To me, that's horrible. Because who's to say in August if they're going to make me do it again if I still have cancer?
What's your birthday?
September 30th.
Okay.
According to the judges, even in the Supreme Court, they claimed as a minor I can't make medical decisions like that. So in August, if they were to say that I have to do chemotherapy again, I'm still a minor. I'm closer to 18, but I'm still a minor.
At that point, what do you think you would want to do?
Get a really good lawyer. I mean, my lawyers fought from day one for me, and it's really hard fighting the state, and we were turned down in every way. And to be told that I have to go through this again when it didn't work the first time, I don't know what they'd possibly do with that.
I think you could possibly have a good case right now for what they've already done with a good attorney, to be honest with you. Because they did inhumane medical procedures to you against your will, and it didn't have the result that they said it was going to have.
Yes, they claimed late February, early March that I was in remission, but just a few months later I get a PET scan and they're not so sure of it.
Well, the main problem with what they say is remission is they look at the tumor markers.
Yes.
And so the chemotherapy made the tumor shrink. But there's other issues that can arise from the chemo, and they don't look at that eventually. And so the good thing is, Cassandra, we can help you. We can help you with direction on what you need to do in the future to be totally cancer-free. The main problem is not can we help you. The main issue I see at this point is getting you to September 30th when you turn 18 and you can make your own decisions. You know, so between now and then, is it? You think it's something that you would want any of this interview to be aired before that time? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
The world should know what's going on.
I agree. I just want to make sure that you're okay with that.
There's people out there that I've met personally that choose natural and homeopathic ways to treat their cancer, and it works. And why I wasn't given that option in Connecticut, I don't understand.
I mean, that seems like a fundamental right to me. Every human should have the right, whether they choose natural or go with conventional cancer treatments. What do you think about that?
I think it's true. I mean, either way, I'm still doing something to help my health. A lot of people in media have misinterpreted saying that I wanted to die of cancer instead of a treatment, and that's not true. I simply didn't want the chemotherapy. I wanted something that was less harmful to your body. Cancer is harmful enough to your body. Why would you want to add more to that?
Why would you want to add more
Or harmful.
harm to the body?
Yeah.
Which is what chemotherapy is. Again, you experienced that firsthand. I'm sad to say, against your wishes, but chemotherapy is poison.
It is.
And that does kill cancer cells, but it also hurts you.
It hurts everything else.
Yeah.
It kills the good and the bad cells. Chemotherapy doesn't know any different from a cell. It just knows it kills.
Yeah. How are you feeling now?
I feel better now that I'm actually breathing fresh air and getting out and moving around. But emotionally, it's hard to decide how okay I am after all of that.
You feel like you've been violated?
I do.
That fly is trying to get us, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, well, the bottom line is you have been. And I think many people should be held accountable for that. But I think that legally you may have a case. So we'll let you figure that out. But I mean, I think you might have a case against them for. I mean, literally, I think that's technically considered assault. Like if you physically touch someone against their wishes, like if somebody comes up to you with a syringe and sticks you, that's assault and battery.
I had bruises on me to prove it.
You had bruises?
My ankles and my wrists and my hand were bruised when I woke up.
When they strapped you down?
Yes, because I fought them. I wouldn't just let them do it.
So they assaulted you to get you down, and then they assaulted you again when they forced a port in you. And then technically, I think legally, they assaulted you again every time they forced chemo on you against your wishes. So, yeah, I mean, not that does anything to help what you went through, but those people should be held accountable.
For the longest time, every day when they came in with the bags of the chemotherapy, I tell them I'm not giving consent to it. And the nurse would simply just say they're doing their job, which they were, that was their job, but I wasn't consenting to it. The DCF workers were the ones that came in and signed the consent forms and the paperwork and everything.
So you go back in August, but you don't know a date yet?
No.
Okay.
My goal would be to try to push it as close as September as I can, to be as close as 18 as I can.
That'd be my recommendation. Put it
really
off as much as you can.
Can't see a judge saying that I'm 3 weeks away from 18, but I have to do the chemotherapy all over again. Your statistics drop after you do chemo and then have to do it for a second time.
Right.
I had an 85% survival rate, and that won't be the same if I have to do it a second time. And if they couldn't cure me at 85, I have no hope that they could do it any less than that with the chemotherapy.
Well, I think the main thing that we want to help you focus on now is getting your immune system strong again and getting your body healthy again. And I know you're already getting there, but just because you're out of the hospital, you're off the poison, you're able to get fresh air, get sunlight, get vitamin D, and just have, be happy. That's a big immune boost right there, is just laughing and having fun. So it's good to see you laughing and smiling. I know that'll help you. But there's other things that we can do to help you, and we can talk off camera about that. So, like I said, my concern is for that if they try to do it again. I think that when this video gets out and people will see it, they're not going to...
Rose controversy last year when the story went out, for this to go out again and say they're forcing me to do it again, I can't imagine what would happen.
No. No, and to me, it's hard to believe that people were saying that they were spreading the lie that you wanted to go ahead and die of cancer. And
everything gets misinterpreted in the media, and what people say and what they see on Facebook and what random blogs and websites say. I never wanted to die. I simply wanted to find a different way to live. I didn't.
And you're going to. You're going to live a long, healthy life. I'm really saddened by what they've done to you, because it's just, to me, it's criminal what they did to you. And it makes me sad that you're only 17 and have had to go through that.
I made it through, though. I wouldn't let them break me. I mean, they locked me away, but I'm still here. Yeah,
well, that's clear that they haven't broken you, and you've still got your happy spirit, and you're glad to be alive, and And I'm just really glad that you've been able to share this with us today.
Thank you.
And I'm really proud of you. Great job. Thank you, Cassandra.
You're